Господи, благослови. Отче наш, Ты есть на небе и на земле. Да светится имя Твое, да придет царствие Твое, да будет воля Твоя, яко на небе, так и на земле. Хлеб наш насущный дай нам на сей день, и прости нам грехи наши, и мы будем прощать обижающих нас. Не допусти нас, Господи, до искушения, приведи нас, Господи, во спасение, яко есть Твоя сила и воля, Богу нашему слава. Отче всех, мы на Тебе, Господи, уповаем. Ты даешь нам пищу во благое время, отвержаешь руку свою и исполняешь всякое душевное благоволение. Помяни, Господи, всех отошедших в вечную жизнь, а нас сохрани, Господи, во всем благополучном. На всем месте поклоняемся Отцу, Сыну и Святому Духу. Христос воскрес!
Воистину Христос воскрес.
Так, now we can sit down.
Right. Well, thank you very much for agreeing to meet with us today at the Doukhobor Discovery Centre. This is Vera and Andy, and I've got a few questions to ask about intentional communities, your history, your knowledge, and your experiences that relate to this exhibition that we will be doing this summer at Nelson Museum. Well, let's start with Andy first, shall we? Here, and can you tell us about the Doukhobor community that you were involved with there, where you grew up, and your experience, and I think elements like how it was organised and what you remember about how decisions were made, how labour was divided up, what sort of things you were involved in, what sort of roles you had, and what sort of skills as well you learned as part of this community.
Well, I grew up in Glade, as you know. It's across the river on the other side. We had 11 villages of, like the one we're sitting in right now. We had 11 of these villages. And it was about 2 miles long. And we were growing up as kids. We always used to play together. We never had no eyes, no me. It was us all the time. We used to have fun. We had no electrical. We had no telephones. So we were just growing up as little kids, as normal as we could. And the land that we had was all Doukhobor land, the whole whatever partial of the land was. We never had nobody's say, this is mine, this is yours. That was ours. So in sense of knowing where your land was, they did say, if my family had 10 heads in my family, I'll count you off so many feet. This is your property. No posts, no surveying, no nothing. If somebody had 5 heads in their family, this is what you have. And it kind of worked okay. No quarreling, no nothing. Everybody had a cow, everybody had horses, everybody had chickens. The cows were free to go. They just opened the barn door and they're out to go. But the biggest thing was the fence portion of the land was where they were doing the hay for cows. And same thing with the fencing. If you had so many in your family, this is your part of the fence. And it just kept, and everybody, there was no argument. So that's the way we were growing up. And everybody knew what they were doing, and homeworks were always wood, water. We had no water in the house. We had to carry in pails. And same as wood, we had to, in the summertime, we used to go up the hill and cut the wood down, and horses bring the wood down to where we can slay them down in the wintertime, bring them home, and then we used to cut them. That was our part of our growing up, part of our thing that we have to learn. Same with knowing things. When we were building, we all kind of pitched in and did the work. So when I was growing up, I knew all the stuff that was supposed to be done, like plumbing and electrical, and I knew how to do it. I didn't have no papers. I just went out and because I knew how to do it. And in the early, like maybe in the 30s and the 40s, when they came to Glade, they kind of lived together, you know, as a community. But then, as the years went by, people went to work. They had their own money. They kind of started to move away from this community helping, and they had their own gardens, and they had their own houses, and they had their own tables, and they feed their own family. But before that, everything was kind of, but we still had that community feeling in the whole community. We all were together. When we start doing things, everybody had to do things, like singing and praying and getting together and doing other things. We always had that community feeling.
Who taught you the skills that you learned? Was there anyone in particular, or was it just a mixture of people?
Well, we used to, the older people used to do it, and we were right there helping. And like plumbing and electrical, we didn't have any electric, so we had to, once they said that their electric's coming to Glade, so we had to put the wiring up in the houses, and I just forget what year was that. And then we had no ferry. There was no ferry. There was one ferry that was owned by a single man. He had one car there. We had no cars on the other side of the river. Everybody was on this side of the river. So we used to have rowboats. And you imagine, rowboats with winds and with waves, 3-foot waves. We had to cross it, and same to school. We had to, there was 8 in the family, so we put all these 8 people on a boat, and we went across.
So you rowed to school?
And then we went to school. And then after a while, the fair came and started living a little differently. It was a community. It was I won't say it was the greatest, but we had a lot of fun. It wasn't a lot of fun. Every evening we used to go play ball. Every evening. And we had to race to the ball field in order to get onto the team. There was 25 of us, so no, it was a lot of fun as a community.
Yeah. Are there things that you look back on which weren't so much fun, or you think, oh, that wasn't so good? Is there anything that you think are like?
No, everything seems to be okay because when you're growing up as a young, you don't know nothing. Even growing up, I was on one side of the village or on the glade. I didn't even know that there was people on the other far end till we start 13, 14, till we start walking. And we walked from village to village, and of course we were nuisance guides, and we had fun with the older people, and they just chased us around. And then it happened that one evening we were, like the roads were all mud, and they had rocks in there, so we took a wagon with steel wheels, put it on the road, and right through the whole villages with trucks and steel wheels. You know how much fun it was? That was the mischief that we had lots of those things.
Okay. And how many buildings and what sort of buildings were in your community?
Buildings is what? Well, you imagine this kind of village was so little buildings. Barns were like the village this way, and they just built sheds this way, and it was a village. But they had nothing in the middle. Nothing in the middle was, the road was fenced because we had cows walking all over the place, and that was our growing up. It was fun. It wasn't just making things up. Every evening we used to play hiding and seek. We had rink in Glade. We used to make ice by ourselves. And then in the summertime we used to play tag in there. And then after we finish playing tag, we go down to the ferry and we jump in and wash ourselves. That was fun. It wasn't really something that we didn't like. We just did it, and nobody was ever. It was us that did it. Nobody told us to.
Great. So, Vera, could you tell us about your community and how it was organised, and what sort of roles you had in your community?
Okay, I was born Novokshina in Grand Forks, and the way this particular little community came together was because of the two Novokshina's brothers. One's name was Alyosha, and the other one was Vanya. And they used to live up on Spencer Hill. It's a little bit, no Beshish, it was a little bit higher than where this particular community was. But I think, and I'm not sure about this, but I think around in the 1920s, the CCUB community bought more property, and some of the property included this specific house where I grew up. And we were told that it was a merchant, a Morrison, that owned this house. And these two brothers and their families decided, or they were able to be fortunate enough to live in this community as two families and extended family. So there was, say, each of the two families, it was Vasil Nevakshono and Misha Nevakshono and all our, and their children and grandparents. So the way, initially, we had, there was a big barn and a hay loft, and we had cows, so each of these families had cows, we had horses, and we felt we were the luckiest people on earth because we had the Kettle River, and we called that our lifeline, and we lived by the highway, and the highway was like a window to the world because everybody was using the highway. And this, of course, as I remember, was before we had vehicles. So we had, and at the beginning there even was a bathhouse down below where the barn was. So the cows used to go to the water, and that was a place where we used to swim as well. But we used to swim there with a grandmother looking after us. Not that she could swim, but anyways, we listened to her. So the two families that grew up in this Morrison house, and we called it a white house, even though it wasn't white, it was faded. And later the family, we had to paint it, and it was painted green. So it was 2 stories with a full, wonderful basement. The basement had wood floors, and in some places it was dirt, because each of the families had separate places to put their canning and all of whatever they made, all the vegetables. And it kept cold. It was a cold basement, so it was great. And the other feature about this place was there was a pump house. And the pump house was right down close to where the grandparents had built a little house. And the water, to irrigate all the property, the water was pumped. And we had our days, so each of the family had a big garden. My grandmother, I remember, she grew a lot of onions, and they used to sell seeds. So we had clover growing, we had seeds, we had small gardening, and the way that we watered was with ditches. So the water would be pumped up on top, and we'd make ditches, and then afterwards grandfather would cultivate. And the way the kids, so there was, we shared the upstairs. There was one of the children, one of their children was my age, so Helen, I called her my growing up sister, but she wasn't my sister because it was our great grandfathers that were the brothers. So my growing up sister, Helen, and I, we used to like to look what the older sisters were doing because there were two of them. There was Doris and there was Florence, and we used to sneak up on them. And so it was a lot of camaraderie. All of us really enjoyed that. We pitched in with whatever work, but even now, Margaret, she talks about how we never felt alone. There was these beady little eyes looking after us. I had a great-grandmother, my great-grandfather passed away in 1946. There was my great-grandmother, and she taught me so many psalms. So prayer was a huge part of all these grandparents, what they passed to the children. And then my grandmother and grandfather, they did a lot of work in the yard and the garden. My grandfather, he actually lived till a month before 100. He kept waiting for his letter from the government. Anyway, so, and then in addition to the grandmother, grandfather, great-grandfather, great-grandmother, Helen's grandmother, and her great-grandfather, there also was my grandfather's sister. They had no children, her and her husband, Prokofiev, they built themselves a little house there too. So at first we had the barn and that bathhouse down below, and then they built the house, the little bathhouses up on top, and my grandparents built a little house, which is still standing. So this Morrison house is still standing, and people live there. I think they made it into a heritage house. And the other Novokshnovs had a little house. So, and this big house kept on changing. At first there was a summer kitchen, and my great-grandmother, she was the baker, and she knew how to bake bread. So she kind of baked bread for the whole little community. She had a long-handled ladle, or whatever you call them, lapata. I think I heard Jonathan mention that. And so she would always bake the bread, and she was the one that made the pickled cucumbers. And so that was kind of our life. Our school, I remember the parents didn't want us to go to school too early because there was no busing. And I don't know if you know Grand Forks, but Fruktova School is about 4 or 5 kilometers from where I lived. So the group of us children, and there were other families that the community had purchased. So there were Novokshnovs and Lapshinovs, there were Stafurovs across the road. So all the children used to get together to go to school along the mountain, because that was shorter and we didn't have to use the highway so much. So I didn't start Fruktova school until I was almost 8 years old. It just worked out like that. And then we also used to go together to Russian school, because where Fruktova school was down below, there was like a, what was that like a kuznia or,
Oh,
remember
yeah.
those years? There used to be festivals there, but we used to go to Russian school there. We did a lot of walking. So to walk 4 or 5 kilometers, that was nothing. We used to run or whatever. We were just told never to talk to strangers or take candies or whatever. So it was all this group effort, these children always being looked after. I'm not sure
Just
what
like
else I can.
Just like a community. Community.
It was a little community. It was up to 20 of us. When Florence, one of the sisters, got married, a little house was built for her right in the middle because her daughter Margaret. Of all of these, there's only a small number of us left. There's Helen, my soul, or my growing up sister. She's now in Hardyview Lodge. But Margaret, the daughter of the oldest sister, she lives in Airdrie, Alberta. So her and I have the most memories about this little community. The other thing about our place was these two families were very different personally. My family, they loved to sing, and they belonged to choirs. And the other family, they didn't sing. But they each had mutual respect for the other. So it was a very respectful kind of community. Nobody had anything bad to say about anybody. Everybody respected each other. And because we were along the highway, we always had tons of company. The Novokshchinovs had tons of company when the 1950 Jubilee was happening.
Oh, yeah.
The whole house was, because there was around 6 bedrooms upstairs, so the whole house was loaded with company. My grandfather and grandmother, they took their bedding and slept on the hayloft. Because everybody had to be welcomed. In those days, there was thousands of people that came to the Jubilee. We were along the highway, like I said. It was this communication with the world. So we made it happen. It was a welcoming place. We had around 6 bedrooms there, some downstairs. When my parents were singing, gathering with their choir practices, I was sleeping on the bed next door. So I learned all the songs by osmosis. So that was my community. I miss it. I moved away when I got married when I was 23.
See, she mentioned about watering gardens. We did the same thing in Glade.
Ditches?
Yeah, ditches. The first 3-4 villages, starting from the north going south, they had no water running. Well, they had water enough for them for drink. But all of them guys had water up on the flat because the water is coming from the mountains, so it was closer. So we had our gardens over there too. We had to carry all the vegetables, all the stuff that those gardens live. And watering was by ditch too. It's not that we had pipes. It was running by ditch, and everybody had a section of water that this is your section. So we go there, we build the ditch, and we run it all the way to the garden, and we watered our plants. That was the most of the work was done there. We were always busy with something.
What was the project going on?
It was a project that was survival. We needed the garden to survive. We needed the potatoes. We needed all this stuff. So we had to work with it. For us, for winter. It's not that we had to go to Safeway. We were not those rich people. We had to have potatoes and vegetables and carrots, and we put them in the ground for winter, and then we take them out of the ground and survive. that was the way we grew up. It wasn't simple, but it was, and it wasn't hard, but we just did it normally.
You know, I think that in those days that I remember my childhood, the only thing the parents actually had to buy was probably flour and sugar and rolled oats.
Well, we had to buy kerosene. Kerosene
Well,
for lamps.
apart from food, but
Yeah.
say barley or rice. Just
bread.
otherwise, you know, there was butter, there was cheese, there was everything.
Everything was.
There was trees. We had apples. We had sour cherries. I remember we had a few sour cherry trees that never had worms in those days, and we also had Saskatoon berries. So in the mornings we'd go and pick the Saskatoons, and grandmother or somebody would make the fruit tarts. And then as kids, what we used to do, like Andy said, all the land is yours.
Yeah.
We used to go from place to place to see what everybody had to eat. It was kind of, I don't know, everybody expected the kids to do that. It was
And we usually
the
go,
norm.
if we go to somebody else's house, they usually feed us there.
Yeah,
'Cause there
well,
was-
they knew these little mouths are coming, and they
So if we
probably
go
wanted
to
be fed.
next village to play hockey, and some of the parents, oh yeah, you can come in, we'll make you some soup. That was normal. That was the way we grew up.
That was our growing up time.
It was a lot of fun. It wasn't that we missed something.
Well, we didn't miss anything.
No.
I don't see what we missed.
No,
There was nothing missed because we went to, we had work, we had school, we had, actually the buses, they started running, like where I grew up, they started running when I was about 9 years old. So then we started to get on the bus and go to the Pearly School or wherever it was. But the parents still had no vehicles, so it was still a little while before we had vehicles. I had a part-time job downtown, and I had to walk home every day. Sometimes you walk home at 11 o'clock at night, and you think nothing of it. It was just how it was. So
that was life. That was
our life. Any more questions?
Oh, yeah. Well, we talked a little about this sort of daily life already, haven't we, really, daily routines. How did, about meal times, for instance, how did those work? Was this everybody together cooking and eating?
No, we grew up as a family. Like, we were separate from being a community. We had our own family. We had a table. Mother used to cook the meal, and we used to sit down and eat. You know, there was no other people that were around to. If they were, they would be sat down to eat together. So, but mainly, our family ate together with whenever breakfast and supper and dinner, and because we had a house away from the big building. My grandmother was in the big building. We had to sleep there on the upper levels. So we had slept there and we ate here, and that was just a normal way of. We didn't know any better. And winter time, the house was so cold, our socks froze to the ground.
Really?
Yeah. Well, we had a house with no basement.
And we had
and in the morning you get up and your socks are stuck to the floor.
A few hardships then.
Yeah, well, that's growing up. So father gets up, lights the stove, and there was no click, and the heat goes. You need wood, you need furnace, and that was the growing up.
How about you, Vera?
Well, we were the main two families, and then the grandparents. So actually the grandparents, they had their own little kitchen and their own little house. The Novakshina family, they had their own kitchen, and we had our own kitchen. The only thing that we ever did together was as kids. You want to go if you see somebody has something better to eat or whatever. That was the only time. But otherwise, but our house, even though we didn't have central heat, we had a wood stove, but we had a basement, so I think that made a big difference. It wasn't a Doukhobor communal home, it was an authentic basement. That was a big deal for us. But in the winter, the hardship was, and my chore, my grandfather, he would go, the Kettle River used to freeze, and he would go down to the Kettle River, he would make a hole there, and he had a little pulley, or whatever, so he would say, Verachka, you go, and when I make the hole in the ice, you let the pail go down, and then you pull it up. So we had a thing going with my grandfather.
Yeah, we did that in Glade too.
We did that too.
We used to, horses, we sled, we put the drum of empty, you go down to the river, fill it up with water, and you bring it up for cooking and drinking. That's the way the life goes on. We had, water was frozen all the way, and it's 2 miles, and those people over there always had water, but we on this north end froze someplace. So we could start going from one end and going all the way, make sure there's water going to us. And you know, there was parents that cut the pipe and put a saw inside so the water doesn't go further than that. So he just leaves a little and more for himself. So we find those, and we, you know, what do you say? That's what, hey, what do you say? You don't argue too much.
Was there any events when a sort of wider Doukhobor community came together? Any sort of ceremonies, festivals that you remember growing up there?
Well, when we were growing up, we had a Russian hall standing in one place. And every week there was a deal. Every community had a deal, like Glade, Shuregers, Trams, Brilliant. There was 16 or 17 communities that had young people coming up, and they had choirs, they made plays and stuff. So almost every other week they come to Glade, bringing their songs, and we all get together and sing, and they present their part. That was a key point of the whole, because we and Glade used to get up and cross the boat and go to Stienne or go to Shurekers one evening and sing together, or what you have prepared, you go on stage and you sing, and that was the, when we had those. They had 18 or 19 locals that were participating, even in festivals. All 18 or how many there was.
Yeah, lots.
And like May Festival, 2 days long. Everybody's singing, and every local is different. They got different songs. They do different performance. And that was those days. And when we were growing up, we had to learn, and we had to go and learn, and then go and perform. And that was part of the community that we, as a community, we were all together. No us, no us. We were the people that did that. And the festivals not that long ago that it kind of
moved to Brilliant, but before they were in Grand Forks.
They were in Grand Forks. We used to go to Grand Forks.
Yeah.
And perform all the 2 days there. We used to go there Friday or Saturday and spend the night and do your thing and come home. That was a key May Festival. That everybody got together, and they knew that this was going to happen, so we all pitch in and do our part.
Have you got any favourite memories from those festivals?
Oh, lots.
There's lots.
Lots. You can't.
And we have everything on tape. You can ask that guy over there.
Yeah.
we have them here.
We have, yeah, actually.
All the tapes for 50 years that we were taping.
And Andy, he was part of the video crew.
Yeah.
So he was a big part of all those tapes. So if ever you want to see any of those times, I think that they're making them into digital
Yeah.
form.
And that was 50, 60 years of taping. And everything's on tape.
Yeah,
So-
so tons of memories.
Whenever it goes out to the public, I don't know.
Actually, I would like to just add a little bit as far as events and memories. See, because in Grand Forks, the Russian schools were formalized earlier, a little bit, I think, because we had Mr. Petko from Russia that came, and he was teaching the kids. He also had these drama groups, so I still have photographs from the drama groups that he used to. So as far as my sister Helen and myself, we used to make our way to Russian school, and not just festivals, but also the Sunday school. We used to call them Sunday schools. Now we call them Sunday meetings, but we used to participate in all of that. And then eventually the Union of Youth movement, when it started, then actually I think I was waiting when I was 14 years old. I was waiting until that time that they would allow me to be in a community. We were all waiting to be allowed.
To be 16 years old. To be
Yeah,
16 to
be
enter the youth
16,
Union of
to
Youth.
be allowed to be in the youth movement. Otherwise, at that time, they wouldn't allow you.
Yeah, there was a lot of youth movement, and
Yeah, so we're
even
part-
children's Sunday schools. Every local had kids too. Just like the May Festival, we had Children's Festival, and there was about 10, 15 of kids standing up on stage, and everybody had
well,
20 kids
lots
in
of
that
people.
choir. Imagine the people that we had here. You know, there was Kids Festival, and then there was the Union of Youth Festival. The kids went through, and then so from there you go higher up. And I even was, yeah, like she says, Pitko I used to go to his classes.
You did?
Yeah,
I was actually a Russian school teacher when I moved to
and I was
to
Russian.
the Kootenays.
I was Russian school teacher too.
He was a student. He's younger than me, so he was a student. I remember the Ozeroffs. There was, oh my God, there was about how many? 6 of them.
Well, we had 8. I had 4 and 4.
There was only the 2 older ones that weren't there.
So no, that was life.
But that's later
Yeah.
away from the community. So if you want to stick to the community, it would be,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Well, our community was still intact when I got married in 1963. So there still were some people. But it started to disperse when the land issue was settled, and
Yeah.
everybody got a piece of land, and they started to build their houses. And my mother actually was left the only person in this big house and community. She was one person left. And
Like I told you the last time we met, the Glades got the houses that are in Glade in the early years, always cemented by hand. And when this owner digs the hole, puts the frame on, then the whole community of men go there and cement the basement for him. Every house almost in Glade. That's how community worked. And then we had lunch after and a little beer. You see, that's the community working together.
yeah, just to add to that, the way our little community used to be, we had a little porch. And so you sit at the end of each day, everybody there, from the little to the elderly, would sit on the porch and eat sunflower seeds and share the day.
Those things.
So
Same in
it was
Glade.
the same.
There was a road between the
Everywhere.
villages, and they had seats in the villages, like along the building. Well, everybody comes there, maybe 3, 4, 5 families, they sit down and sing. they sing their own, they sing and they're like seeds, and that brought the community all together.
Singing seems to be a real,
Oh, yeah.
a real important thing.
Yeah, no, it was,
It was a big thing. My great-grandmother used to be able to sing 50 psalmi by herself. She was a real singer, so yeah. And to read around 100, and all of these grandmothers had a key in or a place in teaching us something.
they taught us how to read them and how to sing.
Our parents, they were mostly out and about. My parents, they were traveling a lot. They went to spread the Doukhobor message, actually. They were invited to a lot of places. Well, in those days, I think they went all over the place teaching. My dad, he was a really good singer, and he used to go to Winlaw to teach young people how to sing. So there was, and then my mother, she used to participate in lots of volunteer work. Well, because you've got all these grandmothers doing the work around home, so then it was a possibility to go and volunteer. And maybe my mom, she was a real good volunteer of the Vera family, because they always had so much company.
Well, volunteers, that the whole USCC system, the society is made on volunteers.
Volunteers.
We used to volunteer all the time. Nobody got paid, even till now. We go up to the Vera Stienne and we do the flowers, we do the cleanup, we do all the stuff with no pay. It's volunteer. That's the way we grew up, and that's the way it is right now. It's not that you think that, oh, if I go over there, spend 2 hours, they're going to pay me $20. No, it's all volunteer. It's even me and you are sitting here with you. These are all volunteers. You're not going to pay me. You know, and that's the way we grew up. It's not that we go there and somebody's going to pay me. Maybe you get 25 cents on Sundays and you buy some jawbreakers that last longer. You know, and we never even thought of nothing of that. It's just,
well, everybody had
what
they needed.
Oh yeah,
you know, whatever you need.
And we never went hungry. You know,
nobody ever.
For how poor we were, how things were happening, we always had food. The house was clean, the outside was all clean, everything is up to style, and nobody went hungry. Nobody begged for anything. If somebody needed something, they would help them without asking. You know, as a community, you can see, it helped each other. Even on cars, some had cars, some didn't. So if he phones me up and say, "Are you going to town?" "Oh yeah, I'm going to town." "Well, I'm going to take a ride with you." Just come out and take you to town and back. Because nobody had so many cars that you think, now they have 4 or 5 cars in the driveway. You know, that was life.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I'm going to ask another question. We talked a little bit about this, but how important was spiritualism in the communities?
Spiritualism? Well, I'd like to address spiritualism, how we felt, or our understanding of spiritualism was our psalmi, because they were the backbone of spirituality. They contained all the spiritual wisdom that we felt was necessary. And the other was the interaction with each other. So there was the mutual respect, looking after each other's needs, being careful not to offend, to care about the other person. So this little village, there was that mutual respect and appreciation and camaraderie and caring for the needs. So, and the psalmi. So that, of course, we did go to meetings and when it was able to, when we were able to, because you had to walk a long way, or grandfather would have to take you in his wagon. But so we did used to go to meetings, but it was a lot of one-on-one belief that you're here to help each other and to learn. And as far as the Doukhobor understanding, it was all contained in the psalmi. My great-grandfather, just for your information, was part of the exiles. He was exiled to Siberia. He recalled how cold it was there. And I think probably his brother, Alyosha, he probably was as well.
Yeah, but
So-
see, even from Glade, they used to walk. First thing in the morning, they get up and they walk all the way to Brilliant and brought their whole family there, walking. Before breakfast, then they get up and they go back. That's how that they had that thing in them. When they came from Saskatchewan to BC, they had that thing in them, that spark, that spiritual spark that was inside them. And that's what drove those people along the way. They didn't choose to, about nothing else except themselves. They got up, they went, that's their spirit, that's going to these meetings, read the prayers, sing the songs, and then that's what made them happy, and that's what drove those people. It's not lip service only. They had something that kept them going inside there.
Yeah.
That's the spirit that they had. Even in Russia, when they had to be persecuted, they had to be tortured for not going to kill somebody. They had that, I don't know what, they had something in there that told them, that's it. You kill me, but I'm not taking that gun into my hand. You think about those things. What those 20s or 21-year-olds that were in the battalion, training for army. When Easter came, they told them to drop your guns, take your uniforms off, and don't kill no more. And that's what they did.
The Christian faith and the tenets of the faith, thou shalt not kill, all that was very much a huge part of their life.
Yes.
They lived it, they prayed, they breathed that spark.
Well, that's what they
Yeah,
had that in
They
them.
had that spark.
That's it. You kill me, but I'm not touching you. That's their motive. You kill me, but I'm not touching you.
Well, I'm not going to hurt you,
Not gonna hurt you.
for sure.
Even like Jesus Christ was put on the cross. He could have fought. He could have done a lot of things from not going over there. He says, no, I'm not touching nobody. God told me not to touch nobody else. This is the way I'm going to go, and that's what's my thing is. And then he said, God forgive those that did this to me. You see? And that's, Doukhobor is a long story. Never mind the 44 when I was born, I don't know. But that's the way we grew up. It's not tomorrow or yesterday. It came all the way from Russia. That's
true.
That truth that they brought forward and bringing it forward. It came with them and it stayed with us. From the young, as we were born, and as we were growing up. We went to Sunday schools, we taught the psalmi, we sang all the songs, and the songs say everything that has to be done. And our Vazhi, the Chistako, the Haspodi, the JJ, he portrayed that as a person telling us how to survive, how to go along and be that person. And that's why Vera and me are here today. You know, we don't want to brag, but that's
You're
the way.
asking questions, we're just answering. That's all.
That's our life. And I believe it. I'm not just making stories that doesn't exist. They exist. And if more people would have found that spark that the Doukhobors had, there would be no wars. They would say, put their guns down, because the Doukhobors believe in sit down on behind the table with me and we'll thrash this out without guns. And we don't leave this table till it's all resolved. That's how you do it, things. And that's the way we were doing things. We go behind the table, and if something's not right, we sit behind the table till it's right.
Okay, that's great. I'm going to move on to another question here. So, what sort of connection do you have with people and places outside of the Doukhobor community?
Well,
You go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go ahead on this one. See, the way that it used to be, how I grew up, outside of the Doukhobor community, at first we were very cautious about the outside. And our parents expected us to get married inside the community. My family didn't really want me to go to university because they felt that if you go to university, there's more opportunity to be outside of the Doukhobor family. So it was very strong that way. But we still had, especially when I first got married, and I'm not quite sure how all that happened. We did start to build a relationship with the community of friends in Argenta. And actually, when Walter and I got married in 1963, my friends who I corresponded with, they came to the wedding from Argenta. So we started with people that were close, like minds. So that was the start. But then, of course, so we're talking about this community, and that was before I moved out in '63. But before that, that's how, in our community, it was a closed, at first it was closed we felt that it would break, or our grandparents felt that it would
that wasn't us. That wasn't us young people that said that we don't want to get married to some other religion. They said you pick your own.
Yeah,
So the trend goes on. If you're a Doukhobor, you take a Doukhobor lady, and it'll keep going. But if you go on the outside and have somebody else marrying you, then things are not going to be as good, because one pulls one way and the other one pulls the other way.
Yeah.
And the marriage doesn't last very long, because which way are we going to go? So that was the idea of them. Even schools were the same. You go out of the community for university, you'll be gone, because that place is you're gonna forget about the community back home, because it's all English and all the other stuff. So that was the trend. I've been told that you marry the lady that belongs to the community, in a Doukhobor, unless she's maybe not a Doukhobor, but a Russian-speaking person.
Well, at that time, there was no outside immigration. But I know in school I had outside of the Doukhobor community friends. I had Japanese friends.
Well, we had friends, yeah.
Yeah, we had school chums. All of us used to be friends.
No,
But we were encouraged to.
In school, we were all friends.
Yeah.
There was no. We're all there together, and we were learning in one way. So that was no object there. We didn't include anybody out, because we were part of the school and we belonged together.
Yeah, we were in teams.
And playing ball and playing hockey, we used to all play
Yeah, all together.
all together. There was nobody better than.
But to get married.
But to get married, it was a
It
different
was
story.
encouraged
Yeah.
within our community.
Yeah.
We've spoken to a number of members of counterculture communes from the 1970s sort of era. They've spoken very warmly about the Doukhobor community and the people that they met here. Were very welcoming to them and helpful in their lives. Did you have any connection with those sort of people in your time here?
In my life, you know, you can meet people all over the world and they're friends, but there's some people that you can talk to, you know, talk about life and stuff, but some people they just don't want to talk about nothing in common with me. If there's somebody that's I know that it's common, same belief that I have, even if he's an Englishman or whoever he is, you can talk things with him. But if there's somebody that's a little bit out of you can't talk to him because I am one way and he's the other way. So you just be a friend and don't say too many things that might offend him or there's those kind of people, and I respect everybody. It doesn't matter who he is. I think if I love myself, there's got to be love going someplace else from me. But if I don't love myself, why am I going to talk to you? You're not going to listen to me anyway because I have no love. That's the way I am. I don't know.
It just depends how far afield you want to go with this interview. You know, life has gone on since 1963 when I got married.
Yeah.
So that's a whole other era of past the community.
Did you have connections with anybody who was on some of the communes and other cooperatives more recently?
Well, I don't have with communes or other people, but I find I have a lot in common with mine. We've had an interesting experience. I don't think it fits this category of interview, but we've had two renters who are Iranian. So at first, for 6 months, we had Aras. He teaches at, he's an instructor at Selkirk. And now we have another Iranian, and his name is Majid. He's from Iran. He'd like to bring his family here. He lives at our place, and find a lot in common with each of them, with the ideology and he accepts our lifestyle, such as it is. So a lot, like I said, from 63 till now, a lot has happened.
So
It's another whole story.
This guy that you're like, he was at our men's practice one day.
Yeah, he did.
He's
He's Persian, you know.
No, but that's...
So Persian and Russian, he comes home every day and he says, Dobry večer, you know. He can pronounce the Russian because the Persian...
See, that's Doukhobor style. It kind of pulls everybody in. Even this Aras that she's talking about.
Majid right now.
No, but Aras. He used to sing in the choir with us, and he translated his words that
he did.
That he could sing with us, and he sang with us, and he went on stage and sang. There's something with this Doukhobor life concept brings those people in.
But it's how they talk about their country there.
But they're the same.
There's similarities.
Yeah.
Their country, Caspian Sea, Black Sea, you know, where Iran is situated. And we watch the bad news together. You know, he agrees that they're all bad news. I think they're all bad news. So we've now switched to our own community channel because we've had enough of bad news. Like,
So
it's,
we're going into other world.
but
Maybe
this
we
is
can-
another world. You don't want to interview us.
Yeah,
You can cut
don't
this out.
interview that.
Yeah, you can
Gone
cut
too
it
far.
out. Well, that's what I was saying. I think it's too far.
Obviously, okay. So I did want to ask about, did you face any, opposition or from people outside of the Doukhobor community? Elements who, government officials. I know there were obviously divisions and areas of conflict with the government and some elements of the community there. Do you have any memories of this?
Well, how far do you want to go into that topic? I don't know if I really want to, but say our own conflicts with see, just a little bit of history. My mother, her family was from the Sons of Freedom community, but she became a USCC member when she got married. But one of her brothers remained in the Sons of Freedom community, and the other one he hopped a train and moved to Nanaimo and changed his name. So, yeah, but through it all, how I simplified it in the other interview that I had, we still considered family, and as far as the political side, we were not in favor of any acts of bad acts or acts of harm to property or to yourself, or that was not something that we wanted to even consider. But family always was important, so we've maintained close ties with all our family from wherever. Some was estranged for a while, but ultimately the Doukhobor family got together.
Doukhobor is as a family, I believe. But when you start vaulting a political party, that takes you out of Doukhobor way of life, because they do things differently than we do. So if you vote for them, that means you're agreeing to them, what they're doing, either you like it or not. So that way, I don't vote for nobody, except for maybe school trustee or stuff like that. But when you start thinking about the government side, you vote for them, they do whatever they want, and you agree with them.
Yeah, because
In your
national
vote.
defense.
In your voting, you agree with what the government is doing. So that's why I'm against that stuff. I have nothing against them, but that's the way I think I should treat myself. If I vote for them, then I agree with them. They can go out into the field and start shooting. I agree. Oh yeah, I voted for him to do those things. That's why I don't vote, and my conscience is clean. That's me. Понял?
No.
Any more?
Yeah. I'm going to talk about, you talked a little bit about this, but your schooling, and you talked about you learning Russian at school. What other sort of things do you remember of those days at school, and what you learned, and what the classes were like there?
I don't know. It was a little bit tough because the classes were after English school. We had Russian school in the evenings, so it wasn't.
At your place in Glade, when
Yes.
I was teaching, was on Saturdays.
Saturdays. So the teachings that I had was when I was growing up, we have the Doukhobor history, that what happened in Russia. The father used to put me down and we read the whole life of the Doukhobors that came from Russia and when it started. So that's why I learned to read and write in Russian. So I'm pretty good in Russian in speaking. But that's where I learned most of the reading and writing. Maybe writing maybe in school was more than reading, but everything that we read with the parents were all Russian. So that's where I learned the history of the Doukhobors and the reading of Russian. That was my schooling. I think I went to grade 7 in English school, but we had to work at home for farming and stuff like that. That was my upbringing, and I'm in my age, and I'm still okay with my education. I can talk to you, and that was my learning.
What about you, Vera?
Well, I did graduate in Grand Forks from grade 12. As far as the Russian, it was a big part. I loved it. Mr. Petko, he was very, very outgoing, and he gave us a lot of historical knowledge. We have the drama club. We learned tons of poetry. Like even now, they talk about how the Ukraine is being decimated. Like we thought Ukraine was part of Russia. We learned poetry about Kiev. I know some of those poems. We studied Tolstoy, War and Peace. We studied all the writers. We knew some of the historical information about Pushkin and Lermontov and Dostoevsky and like the pre-revolutionary writers we thought, or I thought, I still think, were amazing. They were thinkers. And we've had tons through the years. We've hosted a lot of people from Russia, and I still have tons of Russian literature, and it's amazing. I love the Russian language, the sound of the 33 letters as opposed to 26. Like, it's so expressive. It breaks my heart to see what's happening right now, because it was all our Zbornik, for instance, it's all Russian. That's why we had to know Russian in order to be able to quote and understand and read and learn. And the oral tradition was huge. And was and still is.
Like
I've learned a few.
Even
Psalmi.
even the Psalmi that they're passed from there into generations. And if you don't know Russian, you won't be able to pass nothing along.
Yes, so Russian was a big...
Once it comes to you, that's it. That's the end of the line. How am I going to pass something to somebody that I don't know Russian? And even songs that we sing. Now we have more books. Before we used to have everything learned by heart. Oral singing. We had no books. We had maybe few books that we learned from. And when you sing from your heart, you have to know know that song by memory. Then you sing from your heart, not from a piece of paper. Once you close the piece of paper, you forgot what you were singing about. But when you know it by heart, it stays with you all the time. And that's why that's how we sing, supposed to sing. You see? Not from the book, from the heart. And that's where the heart begins, is from here. And that's why it travels. And that's where the community comes from. And that's how we grew up. It's not that we grew up in like that. It took a long time, and it trained us to be that person that the Doukhobors believe in.
All that culture. And
That's what they brought from Russia, and they brought it all the way to me or to her. And if they don't believe in that, well, then you're losing something. Well, for you, yes. But if you're a Doukhobor and you don't believe in that, then I don't know where you stand. You're standing on the lips only.
And you're bringing it on to the future generation.
Well, I hope so, but I don't know how far it's going to go. Maybe me and you are going to be the last ones.
Yeah. Well, like I said, from our little
Yes.
village,
Yeah.
Helen is in Hardeview Lodge. So there's only Margaret, 10 years younger than me. She's in Airdrie, Alberta. You can interview her. She would probably love to be interviewed about our little village.
But they're gonna anyone that grew up in that era will do the same thing.
Yeah.
That community spirit was living with them.
Yeah.
They came from Saskatchewan, from Russia to Saskatchewan to BC, and they brought that spirit to BC.
My great-grandfathers came, what was he, 20? My grandfather was 6, 20-something, I think he was. So yeah, he had been through the Siberian
You see?
cold.
They came from over there and they brought it here. And we still try to hang on to it as much as there is of us left. But we're still trying.
Yeah.
We're still trying. We don't give up. No, we have the millennium, we have the singing, we have
That's right.
we have everything going, except we don't have enough.
The people.
Enough people. But it's still going. How many
Yeah.
of us?
That's good. Okay, so a couple more questions. Let's see
You
what we
have some more?
got. What was your favourite thing about growing up communally in those times, and what do you miss about those times, those sort of community settings, and that sort of those sort of periods? Is there anything that you miss? So Vera, let's start with you.
Well, you start.
What do I miss? Well,
I gotta think. I know it's.
yeah. I have to think about that. What do I miss? What it can't bring back how it was, and I was a child at that time, and what I loved. I guess what I miss is not being close to a river, if you can believe that. Because the river, I even have personal stories that I wrote about the river. I loved being by a river.
Then you gotta move to Glade.
Yeah, but you have a river.
Well,
So I live in Utushenia, and I love Utushenia, but it doesn't have a river. But what I miss is the camaraderie as children, if you can make that into what I miss thing. What I would have hoped for my family, my children, is to be in the setting where there's always a friend to be with. Does that make sense?
Well, for me is the bringing up that this spiritual people that came from, and they planted this spiritual stuff on me. And that's what I think is the most precious to me. Is the bringing up. Is they brought me up the way I had to be brought up. The spiritual way. The only thing I miss is there's not too many of us left, and I would love to see those young people come out, and I will try my hardest to pull this through, but I would like to have some help. That's my dream. Even so, I go to Maleni, I run the Maleni, I do those things. But I wish somebody would come younger than me and help us out. That's the most I miss. You know, I am in my age, I'll be gone tomorrow, but who is going to take my place? You know, that's what scares me. What's next? And I would love to, so this Doukhobor life concept continues and continues, don't stop, till the world realizes that that's the life that we all have to live for. I'm not saying that you have to live that life, but at least help me out on the journey that I am on, and yours on there too. That's what kind of Jesus takes a little bit out of my. I will go on Sunday and I'm going to run the prayer, and once the prayer is finished, once you go outside, life is different. There's nobody there to keep us going. Like we will keep going till we're going, and then what?
Well, that's why I actually do appreciate efforts that, say, Anna Birkova, she's making with her website, Doukhobor Life,
Yeah.
is to leave some legacy. So Walter and I did a short interview with her. So, and Ryan, he's working on, on their project with all the videos. So that's like for the future, if young people will be interested, the hope is, because, you know, look at the world where it's gone. It's, you know, if I don't want to watch bad news, do you want to watch bad news all the time? Don't you want some good news? I don't know. So anyways, I thought the Doukhobors, we tried to leave a legacy, or at least our community, we tried to leave a legacy of good news. So
Even we thank people like you coming over and asking us questions about life in the community.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of yours. You are going to be responsible to take this further.
and make it into a good news.
You know, and show the world that those two are. You have to listen to them and try and take it to heart that those two that we interviewed have something good to listen to. You know, I'm not bragging that I'm the best, but there is something in there that sparks me and her to tell the world that this is the way.
Good news.
You know, I thank you for doing all this, going from place to place, and I'm glad to.
It's a lot of fun.
You know, it's fun to me, but I'm telling you what I know. You know, I'm telling you
Jessica.
how it is, and how I grew up, and why I'm here.
It's fascinating.
You know, you don't get that too many oftentimes. You have different way of life. You know, even you living in town, and you didn't grow up in this system, so you were just thinking, oh yeah, those Doukhobors over there, they're not. But that's the way I believe. And Vera, she even if she grew up in a little village, but they have same stuff, same community living, same, either it's one family or two families, but they still get together with the rest of the families as a community, work together. You don't see those many things now.
I certainly respect that.
You know, you don't see those things that the way we grew up. Now it's the world is, even our life has changed from.
But that's another story.
That's another story.
You don't
But
want
we're
to get
still
into
here.
that.
No, but
Yeah.
life's changed, but we're still on the same track. Even after 50 years or 60 years, but we're still on the same track. We don't go off the track.
So that leads me to the last question.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
I hope it's hard, not hard.
Yeah.
How do you think living on an intentional community has affected your life?
Well,
Well, in every way that we said.
the
How
way
else could
the way we said it, that's what
Yeah.
affected our lives.
it's kind of tried to carry it throughout?
Carry the things that came from Russia and all the way to BC. We try to carry that message to the world, not only to us four here, to the world, that they understand. That's what our message should be, is carry this message all the way so the world would see it. That's the message we would like everybody to hear.
Well, I could just add, for instance, to use what I've always thought at the beginning until now is important, is to have a communication medium. And the communication medium that I was involved with right from the start, from grade whatever, 7, was a newsletter, and then in 1940s it went into Iskra, and we've published that same journal. I don't know if you're aware. It's published out of Grand Forks, and it shares Doukhobor stories till now. So that would be from 1944, I think,
44, I think.
till now. And then, of course, now, like I said, there's all these little starting to use the internet more. But the communication is the big part.
I was going to say something, it just slipped.
Yeah.
It just
Sorry.
slipped out of my head. I said, I think.
Well, ask your question
No,
again.
it just slipped.
Ryan, is there anything you want to ask?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
If you would you want to sing for us?
Oh, do you know what's happened?
Yeah, I told you.
Do you know
Don't
what's
let me sing it for
yeah,
you.
do you know what's happened? My parents were considered some of the best singers. My dad was a teacher. My mom had this amazing voice. She was invited to go absolutely everywhere, or they were. They went to Russia. My mom was intravenous in Victoria, and she had to go and attend in order to sing. But what happened a few years ago is I lost my singing voice. So, sorry.
No, that's totally
I told you. I told you don't make that.
For when we did the interview with Anna, we had to ask her. She invited some people, Larry and Nita or somebody per bulk, and they had to sing Yes, Mnoha Prekrasna. I don't want to sing with my lost voice.
Well, that's okay. We
Sorry.
could sing. We could sing, but then
There's tons of singing that you
anyway,
could
we
incorporate.
know all those songs. Me and you,
Yeah, I
we know
could
lots
say
of
the
them.
words to them if you want.
But that's
Sorry.
you know.
It's brilliant. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much.
Well, I hope you pass some of this message to somebody else.